Napoleon Bonaparte, a colossal figure who once dominated the stage of world history as a masterful military strategist and political titan, has been resurrected in grand cinematic style in Ridley Scott's epic Hollywood production, Napoleon, with the inimitable Joaquin Phoenix bringing this legendary figure to life. Now, while the film's portrayal adds a dash of Hollywood glamour to Bonaparte's saga, yet one of the more captivating, albeit lesser-known aspects of his life, remains the varied and opulent residences he occupied while at the helm of France. These grandiose homes were more than just lavish living spaces. They were physical embodiments of his power, taste, and the tumultuous era he dominated. In this episode of Old Money Mansions, we'll take you through each of Napoleon's favorite and most important palaces, from the grand halls of the Tuileries Palace to the intimate chambers of Château de Malmaison, as each home offers a unique window into the life of a ruler who was as complex in his personal tastes as he was in his political strategies. Number 1. The Tuileries Palace. The iconic and transformative leader Napoleon Bonaparte held a deep and significant connection with the Tuileries Palace in Paris. Before his rise to power, Napoleon was a military genius who rapidly ascended through the ranks due to his strategic brilliance and leadership skills, and his crowning as emperor marked the beginning of a new era in French history, characterized by ambitious reforms and military conquests that reshaped much of Europe. But the Tuileries Palace, long before Napoleon's time, was already a symbol of royal authority and French grandeur. Constructed in the 16th century, it had been the residence of French monarchs, witnessing key events that shaped France's history. Its strategic location, adjacent to the Louvre Palace, underscored its importance in the heart of Paris, and the palace was not just a royal residence, but a political stage where decisions affecting the entire country were made. So, when Napoleon took power, the Tuileries Palace gained even more significance. It became the epicenter of his empire, where he orchestrated his political and military strategies. Indeed, the palace's wondrous stature was aligned with Napoleon's vision of a strong, centralized state, and his desire to establish France as the dominant European power. He thus used the Tuileries as a platform to demonstrate his authority and the might of his empire to both the French people and foreign dignitaries. Now, between 1800 and 1814, historian Frédéric Masson noted that Napoleon particularly favored the Tuileries, spending almost a quarter of each year there, a duration rivaling his time at the Château de Saint-Cloud. Therefore, the palace, in terms of raw hours spent within its walls, undoubtedly held a special place in his heart. For example, in 1804, as he prepared for his historic coronation as the first Emperor of the French, he meticulously planned each detail, ensuring the palace reflected his vision of a new dynasty, and the Tuileries' grand halls and opulent chambers were the setting for many of his pre-coronation activities. And one notable area in the palace was the throne room, where Napoleon often conducted state affairs. This room, adorned with luxurious fabrics and ornate decorations, was an emblem of his love for grandeur and his desire to impress both his subjects and foreign dignitaries. Another significant room was his private study, where he spent countless hours planning military campaigns and managing the affairs of state. This location was a hub of activity and decision-making, reflecting Napoleon's tireless work ethic and strategic mind. Additionally, the palace's gardens were a favorite spot for Napoleon I. He appreciated their tranquility and often walked there to contemplate his next moves, and the environs, with their carefully manicured lawns and beautiful flower beds, provided a peaceful contrast to the bustling life inside the palace. Therefore, Napoleon's affinity for the Tuileries Palace was evident in the way he lived and governed from its halls. Each room, with its unique character and purpose, played a part in his reign, making the Tuileries an integral part of Napoleon's legacy. Number 2. Château de Malmaison. Now, Napoleon Bonaparte's connection to the Château de Malmaison, a grand residence just outside Paris, was both personal and significant in the context of his life and reign. Unlike the grandeur and political symbolism of the Tuileries Palace, Malmaison offered him a more intimate and private retreat. Purchased in 1799 by his then-wife Josephine, Malmaison became a cherished residence for Napoleon, especially during the early years of his rule. The chateau, set amidst lush gardens and serene landscapes, provided a stark contrast to the bustling life of Paris and the formalities of the Tuileries, and the architecture and interior of Malmaison reflected the tastes of both Napoleon and Josephine. The chateau was decorated in a style that combined elements of the traditional French aesthetic with the more contemporary Empire style, which was gaining popularity during Napoleon's reign. Rooms such as the council chamber, where Napoleon held important meetings, and his private study, adorned with military maps and personal artifacts, were significant parts of his daily life at Malmaison. And Napoleon's study in Malmaison was particularly noteworthy. It was here that he spent hours strategizing and contemplating his empire's future, and the place was filled with books, maps, and various scientific instruments, reflecting his interest in different fields of knowledge. The gardens of Malmaison were another aspect of the estate that Napoleon greatly admired. Josephine, an avid botanist, had transformed them into a veritable haven of exotic plants and flowers, some of which were rare species brought back from her husband's campaigns. Thus, these gardens were not just a source of beauty and relaxation, but also symbolized the reach of Napoleon's empire, with flora from around the world. But beyond its actual physical beauty, Malmaison was a center of social and intellectual life. There, Napoleon and Josephine hosted numerous gatherings, inviting scholars, artists, and dignitaries. These events were marked by lively discussions, music, and a showcase of the cultural vibrancy of Napoleon's regime. And Malmaison also played a role in Napoleon's personal life. It was here that he spent time with Josephine, away from the public eye, and it was at Malmaison where he returned after his initial abdication in 1814, finding solace in its familiar surroundings before his exile to Elba. In essence, Malmaison was a place of refuge for Napoleon, a center of intellectual and cultural activity, and a deeply personal space that reflected both his public stature and private self. The chateau's blend of elegance, comfort, and personal significance made it a unique and cherished part of his life. Number 3. The Palace of St. Cloud. Napoleon Bonaparte notably found a sanctuary in St. Cloud, a palace nestled on the serene outskirts of Paris. In the spring of 1802, he discovered this haven, a place where freedom and tranquility reigned, and St. Cloud would later be further steeped in the annals of Napoleonic history, as it was used not only by Napoleon I, but also his nephew, Napoleon III, and it was even a favored summer retreat for the Bourbon kings and King Louis-Philippe. And it was within the walls of St. Cloud that the French Empire was proclaimed in 1804, a watershed moment in Napoleon's ascent to power. As first consul, he inherited a nation mired in civil strife and instability. However, his aspirations went beyond merely holding positions of authority. 7 months later, Pope Pius VII crowned him at Notre Dame Cathedral, ushering in the era of French imperialism and bringing an end to the revolutionary era. Now, Napoleon's predilection for St. Cloud was twofold. Its idyllic setting provided a respite from Parisian clamor, while its strategic location along the Seine River offered vital connectivity to Paris and other key French locales. Specifically, as it was nestled away from the bustling streets of Paris, St. Cloud provided a tranquil setting, ideal for contemplation and governance, offering easy access to Paris and other vital regions in France. Therefore, St. Cloud emerged as a crucial hub during the zenith of Napoleon's military endeavors. His office in the chateau was the heart of his administrative world, where he tirelessly drafted correspondence to various dignitaries and directed the operations of the formidable Grande Armée. And his days at St. Cloud were marked by an intense focus on military tactics and meticulous management of the state's finances. The frequent council meetings held here spoke to Napoleon's hands-on approach to governance and his unwavering dedication to the military and administrative organization of his empire. St. Cloud, thus, was a pivotal location for Napoleon throughout his reign, where the threads of military strategy and statecraft were intricately woven together. Number 4. Schönbrunn Palace, Vienna, Austria. The first location on our list outside of Imperial France, Schönbrunn Palace in Vienna, also played a pivotal role in the history of Napoleon Bonaparte's military conquests. When the drums of war echoed across Europe and Vienna fell under Napoleon's shadow in 1805, and again in 1809, the emperor chose Schönbrunn as his strategic epicenter for the European theater. Within its hallowed halls, history was shaped, the hall of ceremonies transformed into his audience chamber, and the blue Chinese salon into his drawing room. It was here, within the grandeur of Schönbrunn, that the Treaty of Schönbrunn was inked in 1809, a monumental moment in the chronicles of the Napoleonic Wars, bringing an end to the War of the Fifth Coalition between France and Austria. And Schönbrunn's legacy is tinged with drama and intrigue. It was on these grounds that perhaps the most concrete assassination attempt on Napoleon's life was foiled, and the palace also cradled the final years of the Duke of Reichstadt, Napoleon's son, who breathed his last in the very room that had once hosted his father. Today, Schönbrunn Palace stands not just as a monument of imperial opulence, but also as a keeper of history. Visitors can wander through the room where Napoleon once stayed, adorned with exquisite 18th century Brussels paneling and tapestries. Number 5. The Palace of Versailles. Now Napoleon Bonaparte, distinct from his royal predecessors, faced constraints in implementing grand construction plans at the iconic Palace of Versailles. Unlike the lavish architectural expansions of previous monarchs, his tenure at Versailles was marked more by restoration than by new construction. Initially, Napoleon harbored grand ambitions for Versailles, envisioning it as a future residence and the site for an impressive new structure, the Palace of the King of Rome, dedicated to his son. These plans, however, remained unrealized due to various constraints, including the immense costs and his preoccupation with ongoing military campaigns. In lieu of new constructions, Napoleon focused on revitalizing parts of Versailles that had been neglected since the French Revolution. In 1806, under the Emperor's directive, chief architect Pierre Fontaine initiated 2 major restoration projects. These efforts aimed to refurbish and adapt existing spaces to reflect the glory of Napoleon's reign. For example, one of Napoleon's notable visions was transforming Louis XIV's former bedroom into a throne room, symbolizing the transition from the Bourbon monarchy to the Napoleonic Empire. Napoleon himself closely supervised these renovations, ensuring that his personal style was imprinted on the palace, particularly in the Empire and Marengo rooms, located beneath the renowned Gallery of Battles. And Versailles, under Napoleon, served as more than just a royal residence. It was the vibrant center of his imperial court. The palace played host to numerous state ceremonies and events, showcasing the splendor and power of his empire. These occasions were grand displays of the Napoleonic hierarchy, where courtiers vied for the emperor's favor, much like the Sun King, Louis XIV, before him, seeking rewards in the form of financial benefits, luxurious accommodations, and exclusive access to high society events. Moreover, Napoleon used Versailles to impress foreign dignitaries and to hold diplomatic receptions, reinforcing his image as a formidable ruler. The palace's grand halls and meticulously restored rooms were a backdrop to his ambitious political agenda and served as a stage for demonstrating France's restored prominence under his leadership. Versailles, therefore, was not only a symbol of historical continuity, but also an icon of Napoleon's efforts to leave his mark on this symbol of French monarchy, blending the old with his new imperial style. Number 6. Fontainebleau Palace. Last on our list is Fontainebleau, a palace with a royal lineage stretching from Louis VII to Napoleon III, and the locale that has been traditionally seen as Napoleon's favorite of all of his homes. Indeed, this palace, which had been what we might call the family home for the kings of France for over 8 centuries, held a special place in Napoleon's heart. Under Napoleon's rule, Fontainebleau experienced a renaissance, emerging from the shadows of the Revolution. The palace and its gardens were meticulously remodeled in the lavish empire style, echoing the splendor of the past monarchy, and Napoleon's attachment to Fontainebleau was not just sentimental but strategic, as he saw it as a key location to establish his legitimacy. However, 1814 quickly brought massive change. As France reeled under invasion, Napoleon, now a figure of fallen grace, sought refuge in Fontainebleau. It was here, on the steps of the iconic horseshoe staircase, that he poignantly bid farewell to his empire, retreating to Elba. This moment marked the end of an era, a dramatic contrast to the triumph of the Treaty of Fontainebleau in 1807, a cornerstone of his diplomatic prowess. And in the wake of Napoleon I's era, Fontainebleau continued to evolve. The works of Louis XVIII, Louis Philippe, and Napoleon III added layers to its history, each ruler imprinting their legacy within its walls. Today, Fontainebleau houses a museum dedicated to Napoleon I, a treasure trove of artifacts and portraits narrating the saga of his reign and the luminaries of his empire. And recently, Fontainebleau has seen a significant revitalization, with a €115 million investment rejuvenating its historic grandeur. What once was Napoleon's personal touch, the 6 private apartments now reopened, invites the public to step into a world of imperial splendor. And now, we'd like to see you in the comments. Which of Napoleon's favorite palaces is your favorite? And have you visited any of them? We've had the pleasure of being to each of these, so we'd be fascinated to hear your personal experiences. Thanks again for joining us, and cheers. Until next time.